Good evening, everyone. Yad F Ine Shik'e Ado Shidinae She'eya Tatiana Benali Yanishya Tchoto Nasha Nanis Ejitachini Nishle Nesha Shidinae Bashichin Kimtachini Dashiche Ado Bitani Dashnella Akut Ego Dines Zanishle. Hello, my name is Tatiana Benali. I am from Sebit'a on the Navajo Nation. I am the Zuni clan of Tachitni and born for the Tewa Bear clan. I currently reside in Lenapehoking, and I'm here with the American Indian Community House. Thank you so much for joining us. This series is hosted by the American Indian Community House to provide an intentional online space to collectively explore and discuss resources and information regarding Indigenous issues and conflicts that directly affect us today. Through shared concerns and efforts, we will discuss actions, solutions, and the many different ways we can contribute toward the movement and change making. Online in solidarity, led by and for Indigenous folks, we will focus on providing a space that is accessible, respectful, and in unity. Check out the American Indian Community House Instagram, Facebook, or sign up with a newsletter from the H website to keep up to date on the upcoming events. There is programming on well-variety supports, elder storytelling, makers labs, at-home fitness classes, census events, Native Theater Thursdays, and this series. We have a lot of events for you leading up to Indigenous Peoples Day next Monday, October 12th. So be sure to look out on our social medias for the event flyers. And I have a couple of announcements. So this Friday will be the Porch Stomp Festival at Governor's Island. Due to social distancing, we will be doing a prevention in recognition of Indigenous Peoples Day at 3 p.m. Saturday. Social distancing rules apply. Check out Governor's Island or Porch Stomp for instructions. We will be live streaming for your convenience as well. Tai Defoe, second-time world champion hoop dancer and playwright, will be performing 3 p.m. Porch Stomp stages at 3 p.m. Sorry, I repeated that. Also on Monday, we will be doing a live streamed play reading of In Plain Sight by Ryan Opalanitet Pierce at 2 p.m. starring Donna Couteau, Jolie Coultier, and John Scott Richardson. Also, we have kickstarted a COVID relief program for relatives in Lenapehoking. So be sure to follow our social medias to keep up to date on that and learn how to sign up. And if you are in the capacity to be giving, we also have a place to donate so that we can continue with these initiatives. So far we've had this social justice series on Native-led movements in Mashpee, Wet'suwet'en, 5 Southern Tribes, O'odham Nation, 6 Nations, Cheyenne River, and this evening we are headed to Shinnecock for some updates. Throughout these installments, we are continuously working on our collective understanding of how to garner intertribal solidarity, flesh out our definitions of self-determination, settler colonialism, and share resources with each other. So yeah, this week we'll be sitting down with the Shinnecock Nation Graves Protection Warrior Society to talk about the recent victory for Shinnecock Nation, what that means, and other updates from the community. So without further ado, I would like to introduce our panelists, or I'll let them introduce themselves actually. So our panelists will be Bianca Collins, Kelly Dennis, Tala Trogue, and Rebecca, right? Let's see. And Bianca, would you like to introduce yourself first?
Hello, my name is Bianca Collins. I'm a member of the Graves Protection Warrior Society. also a Shinnecock tribal member. I've been working with graves protection for 2 years now, trying to get legislation passed in our town of Southampton. And I'm also here with Rebecca Genia, who's been a longtime land defender and graves protection activist. So I'll let her introduce herself as well.
Hi, I'm Rebecca Genia. Thank you for this opportunity to talk to everyone. Yes, I'm the co-chair of the Shinnecock Graves Protection Warrior Society, located here based out here and located on the Shinnecock Reservation. And we have been actively pursuing legislation for the town of Southampton to protect unmarked burials in our sacred hills, Shinnecock Hills, and protecting sacred sites from further desecration. There's been a lot of destroyed burial mounds in the past during the construction of the Shinnecock Hills Golf Course, and in the Shinnecock Hills with the overdevelopment crisis. Many different spots within the township of Southampton. There's been many destroyed and desecrated graves. So yeah, recently the town did pass a law to protect unmarked burials, but of course it's not enough. It's long overdue. It's not enough protection ever, as far as we're concerned. There's still a lot more work we have to do, a lot of loopholes. We don't want any more desecration going on. So it's a constant vigil we have to keep of overseeing and having oversight over the Southampton town, because basically we feel that their history in the town has not been good towards the Shinnecock people at all, the indigenous people of Long Island and our ancestral territory here on Shinnecock. We're protecting our traditional lands, and it's a hard struggle. We're protecting our waterways, our sacred waterways. So water protectors, land preservation, we need to make sure that the town is aware that they know that they have the money to purchase and preserve and protect the land that is still the vacant lots that are available in the Shinnecock Hills, which will prevent further desecration of our sacred places and our cemeteries. So that's a big campaign we have now going to get the town to spend their money in the proper manner to help us protect these sacred places that are potentially, they are in danger of being desecrated on a daily basis. So even though it was a small victory as far as adopting these laws and passing these graves protection unmarked burial laws, still the trust level is just about zero, and we have to be there looking over their shoulders and one step ahead of this town at all times. So yeah, that's who I am, and thank you so much for including us in this. My history goes back with the American Indian Community House to the 70s. So I've seen lots of folks coming and going. It's really good to see young, new faces. So thank you for these efforts and for supporting all the good activities that the Native people are doing in unity and solidarity. So thank you.
Thank you, Rebecca. It's so nice to have you on this call as well. And very thankful for matriarchs and relatives that are continuing to defend the land and protect the land. Thank you so much for joining us. Kelly, would you like to introduce yourself?
Akwe natampak Kelly natasuis Dennis Nishishayawunk Shinnecock Kwa Hasana Misko Nipmunk Nichapayawunk Shinnecock Indian Reservation, the top. So hello, my friends. My name is Kelly. My last name is Dennis, and I am from the Shinnecock Indian Nation, as well as the Hassana Nipmuc Nation. And I live on the Shinnecock Indian Reservation. And it's really been just a really amazing experience to be part of this journey to get legislation through the town of Southampton, be part of a PBS documentary called Conscious Point that really highlighted our struggle and got the word out locally, nationally, internationally. And yeah, so I'm just thank you for inviting me to be part of the discussion. I'm work with Tila, who will introduce herself. We're both attorneys, and we've worked for the tribe and tribe members as well on different legal matters.
Awesome. Thank you, Kelly. And yeah, I think the first time that we had an event highlighting Shinnecock Nation was about, like, we did a viewing of Conscious Point, and that was a really good documentary. So people that are tuning in, definitely check that out to fully understand, or I guess understand more about what happened, what's going on, what it means. Definitely something worth checking out. Lastly, we have Tella. Would you mind introducing yourself?
Hi, everyone. My name is Tila Troge. Like Kelly said, I'm an attorney. I do a lot of work for the Shinnecock Nation. I'm also our COVID-19 administrator. So I do a lot of assisting tribal residents and tribal members all over the country with various things that our program is administrating to try to help improve everybody's quality of life at Shinnecock. And I am also a very proud member of the Shinnecock Nation Graves Protection Warrior Society. And I'm excited to have this conversation on the panel tonight. So thank you for having us.
Awesome. Thank you, everybody, for introducing yourself. So I have a couple of questions for you all. So obviously, this is a check-in with the Shinnecock Nation Graves Protection Warrior Society. So I wanted to offer you all the space to talk a little bit about how the organization forms, what the organization is, and how relatives in Lenape-Hoking and elsewhere can continue to be good allies and good relatives as we continue to push forward with, you know, where there's one fight, there's many others. So it's important that we continue to build these intertribal relationships and continue to support one another. So I guess we can start with Rebecca, Genia, and Bianca. Go ahead and try your hands. Oh, I think you're on mute.
I'll just start a little bit and then let everyone else take it from there. So in probably around 1900, 1902, over at the, let me start a little bit before that. In 1859, when Shinnecock people were forced out of the Shinnecock Hills and relocated onto our current reservation now, that was part of the last of the land grab efforts of this town to steal just about every single inch of land we had left. So being shoved out of our sacred hills in 1859, and then in 1902, the Shinnecock Hills Golf Course was being constructed. So the Europeans that had come over from 1640 to 1900 were gradually turning our beautiful land into a mini Europe. So of course they had to have golf courses along with their mansions that they built on top of our burials, on top of stolen land. And so the Shinnecock Hills golf course being constructed in 1900, there's documentation where numerous burial mounds, many burial mounds were destroyed during the construction of the Shinnecock Hills golf course. And at the time, there were Shinnecock people who worked as laborers at the golf course. So, you know, our people had to witness this desecration, had to participate in it in order to feed their families at that time, because a lot of our ways were taken from us. We couldn't even be whalers anymore, that's how we lived. The whales to us are like the buffalo are to the Plains Indians. That was our livelihood. That was, you know, a huge part of our culture and our lifestyle. So that was also taken away from us. And so being laborers on the golf course to construct this, you know, massive place to play golf, and destroy the graves of our ancestors, it took an extra toll on us. We were, you know, demoralized by the Europeans, and the oppression that we suffered, and still to this day, of course, and having to destroy those, help participate in watching the destruction of these burial mounds and these graves one after another to build this golf course took a hard toll on our people. And, you know, it went to the heart and soul of, you know, being ripped apart from your ancestors. So it was really a horrible thing to have to go through. So in order for us to seek justice these days, was why it was so important to begin this process of drafting legislation for unmarked burials within the town of Southampton. So, so witnessing the mass burial desecration in Shelter Island and other ones that have occurred all around us, you know, we have for decades been actively going from town to town, presenting this legislation and letting people know that this kind of activity has to stop. You know, in the meantime, the overdevelopment is destroying graves and the environment, the water quality, the wildlife have no place to live. You can't even eat the shellfish in most of the places in the bays and and things out here because everything is so foul and polluted. So the extreme measures that we had to take only went so far. So this unified effort for the Graves Protection Warrior Society, it's like, you know, we really had to kick it up a notch, because you know, if there's only a handful of people, and I don't mean just the Graves Protection Warrior Society, I mean in the population of this country, there seems to be, you know, only a small percentage of people who are really wanting to do something about the pollution, the climate change, because it's huge. And a lot of people think that they're not important enough to be a part of a good change. So that's another thing that we encourage people to know, that every single person is important. Your voice matters. Get up off your couch and do something about it. Every single person has the ability to speak and to voice their opinion on how they feel about the destruction of our Mother Earth and the water quality and etc. So, so that's how we became even stronger as a team, and began our warrior society. It started as a committee and it had to be kicked up into a warrior society. So that's why, again, we tell people, you know, we appreciate beyond belief how the allies listen to us, and we're growing, and the alliance is growing of people like-minded, the environmentalists, the you know, baykeeper, waterkeeper, ocean keeper, many environmentalists are really appreciating the team effort. All the progressive coalitions of Long Island, and even as far as like New York City people who we have participated in what they call the billionaire caravan, where we caravanned our cars in front of the homes of the billionaires from Southampton, Sagaponack, Bridgehampton, East Hampton, to let them know that they are responsible for a lot of this damage that has been done in the society. And we're here to call you out. And we did, we called them out and said, look, you are responsible to help clean up this mess. You can't just sit in your mansions on stolen land of indigenous people and pretend like the world doesn't exist and only you do. And so just to bring some of that awareness of, we're not letting you, the billionaires, get away with anything anymore. And you're responsible. So there's a ton of things in that direction as far as stolen land and building mansions on stolen land. And you know, it's time to talk about forever protecting these unmarked burials, and then talk about some reparations too, restitution, reparations. We tell them, look, you are on land that does not belong to you. It was stolen. We are the landlords of this territory and the rent is overdue, so.
Oh, yeah, Bianca, did you have anything to add?
Well, I became a part of the Graves Protection Warrior Society about 2 years ago. I had just kind of become aware of everything that was happening. There was a recent unearthing on Hawthorne Road in the Shinnecock Hills, our sacred Shinnecock Hills. You know, we know that our ancestors were buried in those hills, and we've always known that. And when I became aware of everything that was going on, you know, I felt responsible to become a part of it and to make time to help be a part of this fight. And, you know, in the past, you know, in those 2 years, we've done about 4 reburials, you know, of our ancestors' remains. And that's just not something that anyone should ever have to do. So we've had to create ceremony to rebury and put our ancestors back to rest. And, you know, hopefully that they can rest in peace. Just like anyone's ancestors deserve that basic human decency. So, you know, I just felt so compelled to be here, just especially with my Aunt Becky. You know, she's been a defender, you know, of our lands for, you know, her whole life pretty much, and her grandmother, her mother, her grandmother, and so on and so forth. So, you know, I just felt like I was in the right place at the right time, and Teal and Kelly have been a part of this for so long. And, you know, these group of people just, you know, I wanted to be here to support them and make sure this all came to fruition. So thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Rebecca, Bianca. Kelly and Tila, I know you're approaching this fight from a different vantage point, however, still very connected. What was your experience in doing your work? And that can go either to Kelly or Tila.
I can start. So Tila and I, well, we first kind of hit the ground running when we decided it was necessary that the Shinnecock tribe have a legal department, especially as we came to the the deadline really to file for our land claim to the Shinnecock Hills that has so many of our burials. And so we unfortunately were not able to have the Supreme Court take our case after we submitted the writ of certiorari with the help of the Native American Rights Fund. And I wish we could have waited until things have changed after that decision in Oklahoma. But you know, our case is still live. It hasn't been heard on the merits. And so, you know, we still want our day in court because it was an illegal taking of our land in the Shinnecock Hills. And that the date for that illegal taking was 1859. And there were so many times that since 1859 that our ancestors have tried again and again to seek redress and get our land back. And we have elders and Princess Noadana passed away, who are always saying, when will we get our Shinnecock Hills back? So it's kind of this mantra that we have, and you know, we're doing what we can to work with you know, the locals in the state to you know, it's definitely a process, but you know, if we can just preserve those parcels that haven't been built upon yet, like that's part of our fight to get our hills back and end future desecration of our ancestral burials. Sheila?
Yes. So as an attorney and a tribal member, it's extraordinarily disheartening when, you know, a situation arises and you can't point out any piece of law that would prevent this from happening. So like so many people are just like, oh, NAGPRA applies. This can't be happening, NAGPRA. And it's like Shinnecock is in such a unique situation legally than other tribes. For example, we didn't even get our federal recognition until 2010 after just decades and decades and decades of engaging the United States in litigation. A lot of people may not be aware that the reason why we pursued federal acknowledgement is so that we were basically seeking litigation assistance for the theft of the Shinnecock Hills. And so we kept writing to the United States and they kept telling us, well, there's nothing that we can do for you guys because you're not a federally recognized tribe. So we're a little unique because we don't have any type of federal treaties with the United States. And we were overlooked during the 1934 IRA elections just based on extraordinarily racial policy decisions that overruled, unfortunately, the law for the United States to acknowledge us as an Indian tribe and to, you know, ask us whether or not we would like to hold an IRA election. And so we have a very just complex yet well-documented legal history with both certainly the colony of Southampton, the state of New York, and the United States. We also have a unique situation where legally we're considered a landless tribe. And so we don't have any type of federal land. And we, you know, besides us arguing that we should at least have a federal restriction of alienation under the Non-Intercourse Act, we have no federal designation of the Shinnecock Hills being our ancestral land. And so we don't have any of these types of federal statutes like NAGPRA that would absolutely prohibit, you know, this digging up of our most sacred and well-known, well-documented. It's not a secret where our burial grounds are in the hills. And so it's just been a decades-long fight with the local government, Southampton, to try to stop this from happening. And unfortunately, and Graves Protection is sure that it's going to happen again, despite the new law that Southampton passed. They put a moratorium on new building only in one of our most sacred areas, which is called Sugarloaf. But we had asked for it to be over, all of Shinnecock Hills. And so the legislation that we did get passed through is very narrow. It's not as expansive as we would have hoped, as we would have liked, as we demanded for them to, include. But it is a start. It's yet to be seen how effective the legislation is. In the past, we've had luck similar to this in getting language added to legislation, and the town somehow just forgets about it, or they never intended to comply with it at all. And so we just need to keep up after the town and make sure they're doing what they're supposed to be doing, and we need to be going to their board meetings and just, this is just the start of all of the work that we have to do. And while it is a victory, we're not celebrating, because we know that there's just so much more work that has to be done.
Off of what Tila just said too, and our reality of living in COVID-19, a lot of people don't realize that the Shinnecock Nation is situated among where we're surrounded really by the 1% most wealthy people in the world. And so across from our reservation are all these mansions and, Koch brothers and everybody. So with COVID-19, a lot of people left New York City, a lot of wealthy people, and they're all, the real estate, just trying to get homes and get property skyrocketed in this area. And at the same time, the town decided, we need to delay our passage of the legislation that would, supposedly prevent future building of a house or, addition of a pool or something in the Shinnecock Hills. And so, there was a lot of delays, and now there's more and more people out here. It's, there's very kind of limited, resources, and we worry about things like septic and what that's doing to our water with the influx of people. So there's a lot of compounded issues presently for us, and just trying to also keep healthy during all of this. So yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, I think a lot of people don't realize that it's like just like five miles away and across like a river or a body of water as well, that there's this like difference between the 1% and the original like peoples of the area. I would recommend people look into the history, and really, especially if you're living in Lenapehoking in New York City, make sure that, and if you're living anywhere, honestly, make sure you know the original peoples, the fights that they're going through, and how to be allies, and know your place and be respectful. But yeah, I think you brought me to another point, or another question I had which was just like updates on the community. I know, like, we've talked about like how where there's one, there's more, and obviously it's very complex, and it's especially complex in Shinnecock Nation for various reasons. So I guess as far as relatives and Lenapehoking allies from elsewhere that are tuning in through Facebook live stream, where should they be like looking out for as far as like news sources? Does the Shinnecock Nation Graves Protection Warrior Society have any social media information? Are there any like key people that kind of divulge all of this information that we can kind of keep up to date on local issues for the Shinnecock Nation? and or if anybody just wants to announce anything, you can use this time for that as well. So we can go ahead and start with Bianca and Rebecca again.
I just wanted to say that so many nations, tribes, indigenous people are going through this, whether it's Canada, Hawaii, Puerto Rico, South America, Central, North America. There's so much desecration and sacred sites destruction going on all over indigenous country. And that's why we feel like it is so important, with the social media and everything else, to bring recognition to these places so that we can all, you can imagine if there's something happening, whether it's on the, whether it's in Arizona or Florida, Canada, or Shinnecock, New York, whatever, you can imagine the unified effort to let, the country, the world know this is what's going on, and to have like so many thousands of people just bombard those local governments, pressuring them into doing the right thing as far as the indigenous people, because a lot of times the tribes feel so alone and so abandoned. They don't know how to, get out of that hole of feeling like it's a hopeless cause or something. So that's why, it is so important to know that we can do something about this on that social media level and let everyone know what is going on. And because I know the town of Southampton was bombarded with emails and phone calls like they had never gotten before in support of the unmarked burial laws being passed, and to stop the desecration of the Shinnecock Hills. So that, those efforts are so important, and we want to be able also to help every indigenous, sister tribe that we can, anywhere. And if it's a letter or an email or a phone call, whatever it is, that's a huge strategy, because again, one of the new terminologies is, activism does lead to legislation. So people are really recognizing the fact that when you do take it to the streets, it can have a positive outcome. And, maybe the Trump administration is trying to make the taking it to the streets efforts into some kind of anti-Trump or something. I don't know what in the world he's trying to prove all the time, but we know that activism leads to legislation, and to support each other's efforts through this social media, it's a really good and effective way to get something done in a good and positive way.
And I'll just add that we're currently working on putting a flip book together online so that we can just lay out documentation, kind of like a timeline of all of the unearthings that have taken place, throughout Long Island, especially in the Shinnecock Hills. We're currently putting that together. As far as social media, we have a Instagram page that we just put up. So it's gravesprotection_warriors, and I'll put that in the chat. And if anybody, wanted to reach out to us, they could always send us an email at graveprotection@gmail.com, and I'll put that in the chat as well. We're currently also trying to organize an intertribal task force within, any nations, throughout, the US and Canada as well. Anybody that wants to stay interconnected, because again, like we said, all of these fights are interweb, that are, are fights throughout indigenous communities, are all tied together. So I'll put that information in the chat. Thank you.
Awesome. And Tila and Kelly, if you had anything to add.
I know that Shanae Bullock is currently collecting donations through her consulting organization. I think she's raised like 10 grand toward the efforts for Shinnecock Graves protection. And so I will send that link in the chat as well.
Awesome, that would be great. And Tila, I know you had like a couple of things to mention as well. And all of these links we will be sure to share with our listserv and whatnot. So if people aren't able to get everything right now, at least the people on Zoom, we can get that information to you guys.
Yeah, I'll put some info in the chat box. The nation itself is raising money through a GoFundMe just for general COVID-19 response. And we are having somewhat of a crisis. We didn't get very much housing funding related to COVID-19. I think we got like $35,000, which will not even help one family. And in my role as the COVID-19 administrator, I have had just family after family after family after family come to me with pretty desperate and emergency housing needs that need to be addressed immediately. So the Medicine Lodge can collect checks if anyone wants to send a check. I'll put that info in the chat box. But we really have some dire needs that we're trying to not only, push for legislation, make sure that the town does the right thing, but we're just trying to, feed our people, get our kids diapers and, fix giant holes in our walls or exterior roofs or whatever immediate need people have on the res. So this is a very challenging time. And in addition to all this, we're basically in a flat out battle with New York State over our economic development. And it's extraordinarily frustrating that, every other nation or jurisdiction or town or whatever you have is allowed to participate in the economy, but for whatever reason, whenever Shinnecock tries to do anything, we're totally blocked out and we lack the funds and resources that we need just to exist. It's extraordinarily expensive to be surrounded by the 1%ers. If you can even find food or what you need in the store, because they come and buy everything, and everything is just like, the price of living is just so incredibly high. It's very challenging times. But I will make sure that those two resources, they're in the chat. Thank you.
Awesome, thank you so much. At this point, I do want to open a portion of time for folks that are tuning in on Facebook live stream or even on the Zoom call right now. If they had any questions for clarification or what have you, feel free to put your name in the chat so we can unmute you, or you can write your question into the chat and I can ask that question to our panelists. So I just wanted to offer that. I guess my next question while we're waiting for questions. Let's see. And I think some of these questions you've kind of answered, but maybe if you want to go more in depth. So what kind of support have you seen from other tribes, and what kind of support do you need from other tribes from now onwards? And anybody can answer that question.
Oh, can I please say one thing about that really quickly? So New York State is one of 4 states in this whole United States of America that does not have laws to protect graves. So we need especially all of the New York tribes to get it together to present this in Albany. And I know as individuals, we have been doing what we can, but that unified effort to really blast New York State, they ought to be ashamed of themselves for having in 2020, having no laws to protect unmarked burials and the protocols that come along with saving sacred places and recognizing all of these cemeteries, indigenous cemeteries. They really ought to be ashamed of themselves. So to me, it begins with New York State, the tribes, getting together again as a unified force to go to, we have to go to Albany probably again and again and again to demand that they get their laws in place ASAP. So to me, that's where it begins, right? Like in New York State, each of those states that do not have these laws passed yet, get the intertribal connection there, and let's get this going.
Definitely, I fully agree with that. I think the more we connect and the more we build together, the stronger we'll be. And I think as we have all talked about, this struggle is the same wherever we're at. There are a lot of issues with desecration, even just in Manhattan, that I've seen and been against, I guess. And, obviously in Brooklyn, there's a whole other amount of desecration happening with the fracking and whatnot. So definitely, I think building those intertribal alliances and relationships is so important. Bianca, I think you were going to say something.
I'll come back to you. I just lost my train of thought.
Okay, sorry. All right. Yeah, I think there is a question here. So this is from Facebook. It says, what are the economic industries or initiatives? What are the economic industries or initiatives the Shinnecock Nation has currently?
So I can start. We're pretty limited by the what kind of economic initiatives we can pursue because we don't have trust land at this time, and so that that prevents us from doing the kind of gaming initiatives that we would want to do. It also, if we wanted to pursue green energy projects, we need land for that, and we already have just limited land base with the housing needs and the shortage of housing that we have on the reservation. So we are doing some interesting alternative things. So we're pursuing medical marijuana actually now as a tribe, and trying to work with the Department of Health in New York for that to happen. But it'll probably become recreational soon is the hope. It's kind of been an exciting adventure, and we'll see how it pans out. But things, of course, have been slowed with COVID-19, and otherwise, we really don't have much, unfortunately. We had begun in the 70s to really have a culturally kind of viable economic resource, which was the shellfish hatchery, since we are on a peninsula almost surrounded by water except for the north. And unfortunately, water pollution with the red tide and brown tide had significantly shut down that endeavor. But we still do a lot of shoreline restoration. We go after different grants that are able to help our tribe members with jobs. after Superstorm Sandy, Tila's mom, my aunt, Darlene Troge, was the main person in really getting us that grant to be able to get our sand back on our beaches and to help it to restore a lot of the buildings that had been destroyed. So, you know, we definitely know and see it coming that climate change is impacting us, and that, you know, that should be really where, you know, if we can, trying to make a businesses and an economy that kind of goes to try to prevent some of the impacts of climate change on us and our livelihoods.
Yeah, another economic development project we're working on is we're supposed to have 2 monument signs on Sunrise Highway. So basically just a very quick history. New York State, like they did to other tribes in the state, basically alienated illegally a highway easement, which split our most ancestral land. Everyone who's enrolled Shinnecock now has an ancestor that lived at that area of our reservation in Westwoods. And so what we did was we were going to construct 2 not only advertising signs but monuments with our tribal seal and our tribal flag, 61 feet tall. And as soon as we got our first sign up, we were actually sued by the state of New York, and they sought to have a temporary restraining order placed against us. And that restraining order was effective for an entire year. And, you know, when it finally got in front of the judge said that without question, it's our land, and without question, we have the right to conduct economic development. And yet still the state to this day remains just absolutely relentless in their pursuit to just, again, stop our economic development. This project literally has the smallest footprint. They've already disturbed the area by building a major highway. This is the only, you know, major way in and out of the east end of Long Island and the Hamptons. And it turned out that with COVID-19, our sign was the only way that we could get information out to not only Shinnecock people, but also to Southampton residents, and also to everyone from New York City who was fleeing, because at one point there was, you know, federal advisories that anyone from the city had to quarantine for 14 days. There was all kinds of local advisories that we ran free of charge. And so it's just so unjust, but it just goes to show the way that New York State continues to treat Shinnecock people and the other tribes in New York State. We know as Shinnecock people that every other tribe has faced similar issues with the state. So yeah, we do really need to strengthen our intertribal bonds here, not only here in New York, but especially here in New York and with other nations who are going through very similar things. But New York historically has been known to be one of the worst states, and they've gotten away with it so long just by being this colonial superpower. And most other tribes legally haven't had to endure what Shinnecock people have had to endure, with no type of federal trustee oversight at all. So we have a lot going on, but that's why we need these types of warrior societies, because we're tired of it and we're not going to take it anymore. And we're not going to stand there and we're not going to let you dig up our ancestors right in front of us on land that you stole. And that's why McGirt is so exciting, just the language, like, just because they've been digging and digging and digging there for hundreds of years, it doesn't make it right. And just because they stole it, and the thing is, they didn't just steal the land once, they would steal it like every 20, 40, 80 years again. They would just, you know, steal the same piece of land because their documents were so questionable. And it's very frustrating. And it's very simple what we're asking. We're asking you, do not dig, do not build a home, do not put a pool in, you don't need a garage, you don't need a shed, and you don't need to be purchasing any land in the Shinnecock Hills, because it's not yours, it's ours. And so going forward, that's what we're going to be working on. Same thing we've been working on for a long time now, since 1859, is getting our Shinnecock Hills back.
Thank you. I think that was a good question from Yagoahene Oaks. And I think it definitely is a tribal sovereignty issue as well. And I think as relatives from all over the place, we need to be supporting these issues and being continuing to educate ourselves on what's going on in these different nations and tribal territories. So we're getting pretty close to the hour. So I had one more question for you all. And it's just any lasting words you would like relatives in Lenapehoking and surrounding areas to know, or any last words? And everybody can answer this question.
Tila covered it for me. Thanks, everybody. Tabutne.
Yes, definitely. And I think I'd just like to say one more time that let's use this social media thing as a good thing for our nations to have a good opportunity to speak to each other and support each other's efforts.
I just want to thank everybody and thank you for organizing this and letting us just kind of, share all of our, struggles and everything that we're fighting for right now, especially when it comes to our sacred Shinnecock Hills. I just encourage anybody who wants to be added to our email list. We'll be organizing probably another Zoom call within the next few weeks, just as a call to action for people to write letters to the CPF, the Community Preservation Fund, Southampton Town. So if you'd like to be a part of that and, help us, then, send us your email and we'll be glad to put you on the email list. So thank you again.
I just want to say thank you to everyone. Please, again, follow us on Instagram and make sure that you're on our mailing list. I really believe that the only way that we'll get things done is if we stand together. And so we are really just appreciative of all of their tribal nations, as well as our allies and friends and supporters that we don't even know that we have. We want to stay in touch with you, and we'll definitely be giving a lot of updates soon.
Awesome. Thank you all so much for joining. It was a blessing to have all of you on this call. Again, for people tuning in on Facebook, this is the Shinnecock Nation Graves Protection Warrior Society, and you can follow them at Graves Protection, Graves Protection _warriors on Instagram. And you can also email to be put on their email listserv at gravesprotection@gmail.com. And we'll be sure to put those links inside the chat box underneath the live stream. So keep an eye out for that, as well as the GoFundMes that you can donate to. Make sure you keep up to date on that. And if you can share that as well, that would be great. And lastly, don't forget to check out the Conscious Point film. It's just a great film to have like a little taste tester of what is going on. And there's so much more. So make sure you're following the social medias. With that said, I just wanted to invite everybody to also keep an eye on the American Indian Community House social medias, because we do have a lot happening this week online and at Governor's Island. So make sure you're following the American Indian Community House to keep up to date on those events. And have a good evening. Thank you all for joining us. And yeah, we'll see you next time, next issue, I guess.
Thank you. Thank you, Tatiana. Bye, Taylor.
Thank you.